On this episode, we're talking to a good friend, Pam Wiz, from the Kixby Hotel, the Lookup, their rooftop bar. We talk history, present, and future of our industry, great cocktails, and Hennessy and hip-hop.
It's 9:50 in the morning, so I figured we should
perfect.
have a morning drink. But like for me, morning drinks are a little bit more low proof, right? So coffee. Could you drink coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only in cocktails, but yeah.
So same here. Listen, I love the taste, but it makes me crazy. So you don't want to use too much of it, and something that also is going to be nice and refreshing. So I found over the years, especially in travel in Europe, coffee and tonic is really popular.
Yeah.
For good reason. We don't drink it here in the States because we need like coffee all the time. But for cocktails, I think it's really lovely. Plus, I like a little bit of brightness in my drink too. So we're going to make a morning drink that has like a little bit of all that integrated into it. So not too much, but just like a little bit of passion fruit. The passion fruit's really just to brighten up the drink. I found that when you go to Europe, they also put a lot of orange and citrus in your coffee, and I love that expression. Also, for those who don't know, or I know you know, but passion fruit and coffee really go together so beautifully. Some of my favorite cocktails have that combination factor. So we're going to use that. I got you your own glass.
Brilliant.
You have to have your own glass. We're going to add the coffee. And again, this is a low proof drink, so don't, I didn't want to overwhelm you with the coffee. We're going to do 3 ounces of that in the highball glass. And we're building this cocktail. This is not a shaken thing. I truly want this to be like a coffee and tonic situation.
You're such a pro in the explanation of your drink.
Oh yeah.
But
you have to think about this is that I just don't want you to have this. I want other people to drink it and understand why. All right. So we're using an Amaro, a darker Amaro. So this isn't like going to be one of your fruity ones. This is going to be one that's definitely like darker in texture and flavor. The sky's the limit, right? So we don't have to be brand specific. We're doing 1.5 ounces. So again, just a tad bit of alcohol. I say this as like a nod to my friend Yael from college. We used to go to class in the morning. I'd pick her up freshman year, and she kept a bottle of Bailey's under her bed, and she would spike her coffee every morning. So I think this is a drink. It's really much kind of like her, right?
Brilliant.
The tonic's gonna be the last thing. You never add the bubbles in the beginning because otherwise you're going to disrupt them. I actually also like to not build on ice for big reasons. When you build on ice, things never naturally stir together. Here you barely have to do any stirring because all the ingredients have integrated together, and then you can add the ice afterwards. So it's kind of like my hack. I always tell people at home, don't build over ice if you don't have to. Do it afterwards. Then you also get a lot more goodness in your drink. I'll clean up that ice. Don't show that on video. Don't show that.
I got people commenting on videos I was making over COVID. They were like, "You're using your hands to scoop ice?" I'm like, "Buddy, I'm making the drink for me."
This is great. So that's going to be for you.
Thank
and then
you.
if you want to add more ice after, you can. But this.
Cheers.
This gets us going.
Yep.
It's not too sweet, which I love. The bitterness from the Amaro really evens it out. The coffee's not overwhelming because it's only 3 ounces. So for
passion fruit's really nice there too.
Passion fruit's great. And I only used 1/2 ounce. It's really important to remember, like, that stuff goes a long way, but adds the right amount of tartness.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
It's just a little morning cocktail.
It's funny because I've seen more and more coffee and tonic coming out as a trend in cocktails now. And occasionally, and coffee and tonic is one of those situations where somebody at Hennessy's PR department nailed it like 8 years ago, had me making coffee and tonic cocktails. And I was like, you know what? These are really good. I'd never heard of this before. But we have them.
Ahead of the curve.
Yeah, but like way too early.
I'm not plugging this because you work with a cognac that I absolutely adore, but I will say that the few places where I drink tonic are in 2 instances. Coffee and tonic. I drink it. I don't even drink gin and tonic. I drink gin and soda. Tonic is a lot for me. But the other thing I drink is cognac and tonic.
Yeah, it's good, right?
It's phenomenal. And I feel like every person in the world should learn about it and open themselves up to the opportunity to have it, because it really, you can just sit around all day and drink that.
There's 3 ways they drink it in cognac, and it's either with ginger ale, with tonic, or with sparkling water.
Right. And I found that when I was in cognac, when they gave it to me with tonic, I was like, I'm not going to like this.
Yeah.
There's no way. But it works beautifully.
Yeah.
I find that the quinine and everything else that happens in tonic interferes with gin too much because there's so many botanicals. But when you come with the flavors of like the beautiful aging and like those like raisin notes and everything else, it works all together.
I told all of our, all of our club promoters that, worked with Hennessy back in the day, they were all like, what should I drink? I've got to come up with my own drink. I was like, you're not going to think this is super creative. But when you get bottle service, get tonic water.
Yeah.
Just trust me on this. And it became everyone's drink like across the country.
Oh, I love that.
But only the people that worked for us.
Yeah, that's the only people. I feel like if word got out, and it's year round. It's not even just a summer drink.
Yeah.
It really is truly
it's a great highball.
Drink. Oh,
yeah.
It's up there with like my top 3 favorite highballs. So
I think more so because you get that look of shock and awe on people's faces with something that's like, it's like you almost get mad that you didn't come up with it.
Yeah.
Like, how did somebody have to show me this? It was so good.
Yeah, but it's just something that you wouldn't think about putting together. Also, because everyone thinks people inherently think it's going to be sweet, right? Sweet is such a funny concept when it comes to drinks because of the way that our minds are pre-programmed to think about the concept of sweetness, but it's not because we forget that tonic is quite bitter. So when you work it together with that beautiful aging and the vanilla and like the dryness, that a lot of cognacs have a lot of dryness, so it like kind of bridges all those flavors together. And it is just a sassy moment in your glass,
Yeah, that's brilliant. So let's go back to the beginning before we just go off on tangents. How did you start your career in this industry?
That's always the origin story question, right?
Yeah, but like because I think nobody really plans on being in this industry unless your parents were in the restaurant industry, you had a close family member or something that was a chef, or you got inspired that way. Most people when they're younger are like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a firefighter, I'm going to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
No one at 8 years old is like, I'm going to be a bartender.
When you grow up in a classically Jewish household, they're like, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. That is what you're going to be. So here I come.
So no astronaut.
Yeah. No astronaut. We don't send Jews to space that often. But I come from a Jewish family. And it's interesting when you go back in history, there is a big association between Jews in the hospitality industry, but not as prevalent in bars. You don't see that as commonplace. And in my family specifically, we have no hospitality background, like none, not on either side of my family. We came from sign makers. Actually, we created the Arby's sign. That's our closest thing to hospitality.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we created the Arby's sign.
So you're the culprit.
Yeah, that's us. The big hat.
Yeah.
That was my grandpa. May he rest in peace. But we have none. So for me, what happened is that when I was in college, I always liked mixing up drinks with my friends, as we all do, right? A little jungle juice here and there, French martinis. Can I swear on here?
Yeah, you can do
French
whatever
martinis
you want.
are the shit.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't care what anybody says. French martinis are the shit. We definitely mixed up things in my sorority house, X, Y, and Z, and then I had a bunch of friends who ran the Columbia Bartending Academy, and it was a 6-week course. You took it 1 day a week, and at the end of it, the top 6% of people got to be in the agency, where you get gigs if you wanted to have them. And my friends just said, come to class because you'll help us put the booze away at the end and we will pregame in the liquor room. And I said, that sounds great. It was $120, which was a big expense at the time in college. I took the class. I learned how to make a Long Island iced tea like no one else can make a Long Island iced tea. And I passed, and I was in the top 6%. So I got in the agency. I didn't really take it seriously, but I was known as like the sorority bartender. People really loved that I could like make a mojito fresh. And when my first year out of college, when I had an event planning job, which now kind of coincides, I worked in event planning, which has been so immensely helpful working in the hospitality industry. On Saturday nights, randomly, I would just sometimes guest bartend at places, make like $200 cash in the back, and then go out with my friends.
Like at another sorority house or a frat house, or like at a bar.
So this is after college, and it was at this bar called Thin Lizzy.
Great.
And I'd be in the back. There were no shakers. It was really just like tossing drinks between 2 cups. Your friends would come, bada bing, bada boom. Everyone's drunk. Get them out. And I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I felt that rush. And after my event planning job, I went into marketing. I wanted to work in children's educational literature.
That's super specific.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
That, mind you, this was the time of the recession just starting. So this is 08, 09. So I was working at a marketing company doing education startup. I lost my job and I had to make money. and my friends, they would guest bartend for charity at a bar in Murray Hill. So for those who are listening and don't know, this gets fun. Murray Hill is probably the frattiest, douchiest part of New York City, period. That's it. It's like where
Full stop.
where all the white bros go and get apartments right after college. You know, everybody went to Big Ten school. That's it. Like that's the area. So my friends used to guest bartend there for charity. They said, we know the manager. We can get you maybe a job there while you're looking. So I was my manager's first hire. He offered me the daytime shift, Monday through Friday. And he says, it's not very busy. You make what you can of it. And that was that. And that started my career, and I never looked back. It's funny because I'm still really close with that manager. We've become insanely close friends. He still works in hospitality. He's amazing. And I think I really learned everything I needed, most of the things I need to know from this industry, working at a high volume sports bar in Murray Hill, especially during the daytime shifts.
Yeah.
And I grew that crowd. I would like walk out in hand with like $350 cash from like a 6-7 hour shift daytime. It was a phenomenal time.
So I think there's something to that. I wonder about today. It just had me thinking when you're talking about that, like working in the high volume kind of sports bar. Mm-hmm. I came from a club side. Well, I worked in a few bars before then, but the club really shaped me, and that's where I decided this is maybe
and
for me.
We've talked about this before, about both of us.
Yeah, it's like the speed aspect. I wonder about bartenders today coming up. You can go immediately into a cocktail bar. Might not be a good cocktail bar, but you're immediately making cocktails, not necessarily speed. I wonder how that's going to shape, how that's going to work out like 10 years from now. Like, are things just going to be acceptable that we have to wait 15 minutes for a drink? Like,
well, it's interesting because when I worked at Dead Rabbit, which was, you know, I worked at a few other cocktail spots, and Dead Rabbit was my first real like intense one. Jack and Sean used to put down these timers as soon as we got a ticket, and we had 10 minutes to make the ticket, no matter when it hit the table. So you could have a queue of 4 other tickets ahead of you, and you still had to make it under 10 minutes. My sports bar bartending kicked in immediately. Like, I was insanely fast. I could get things going, but I do wonder for those who've never had like the fire under their ass, right? I remember the nights at that sports bar where I would be 3 deep at a bar by myself, just with a bar back, and I would have to make, you know, like 8 Bud Lights while making like 4 vodka Red Bulls while pulling these 3 beers and also these 10 shots, and I could probably do it all in a minute if you give it to me. Mm-hmm. It's a rush. It's a skill set. I'm grateful. But I think we're in a different time of food and beverage in general where people are spending their monies. Yeah. There used to only be bar offerings back in the day of that caliber. Now you can go to any kind of bar that you want to. So there are going to be different needs and different speed levels. And people are going to be able to work in environments that feel appropriate for what they're able to do at that level.
Yeah, I think there was, well, before I go on that, I'll say that, like, I've always said, like, I'm not pretty behind the bar. Like, I'm not the bartender that flicks it up, holds it straight up and down, one finger around, all of that. I have a death grip on that bottle, and it's all there for speed because I was so used to, in a club, I had to use the Berg system. So it's like, I'm used to this like donut that I have to grab and go. And then after that, it just never. Yeah.
So you and I would look very not pretty behind a bar together.
People would get drinks quick,
They would get drinks so fast and it would be mind blowing.
You don't want to Instagram me though.
You know what's funny? I was just working in Nantucket Wine and Food with the Cocktail Guru team. Mm-hmm. And one of our team members was on the Aperol bar with me. And it's important to say like what this was because we made for 4 days straight Aperol spritzes. 4 days straight. I just want to like put that in your head.
You didn't just put them on draft?
There was no draft. Wouldn't that have been amazing? And we had these small glasses. And so you know how these rush of people come in. For those who haven't been to wine and food festivals, they open the doors and people just it's like a tiger on some fresh meat in a cage, you know? And we were the first booth that they walked by. So we had to be ready. And I lay out the glasses and I'm doing 2 things at once. And then I'm cutting the Aperol. So cutting is the idea of when you're speed pouring a bottle upside down, you do bounce it to give a hiccup so that you can move to the next glass and you don't waste any of the liquid. Some people don't know what the terms are, and that's okay. So I was cutting and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "This is how you measure out things and speedily bartend. And I taught him this amazing cocktail bartender, the club style. And by the end of it, there's this great video we just posted. He was just killing it down the road, but it took him a bit of time and practice, but it comes in handy still.
Nice.
After all these years of cocktailing, I'm still going back to the OG skill set.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's like somebody wants I think the modern way, it's like, oh, we can design a good cocktail, but all of that's going to hit the fan when you're working a booth that's like front and center, the prow of the ship as people, as it breaks against the waves.
Yeah. I had a friend in Los Angeles. She was approached by a brand for a gig, and she lost out to the gig to an Instagram influencer who makes pretty cocktails. And the day of the event, she got a frantic phone call from the brand. And by the way, my friend is like someone who won Speed Rack. She like is fast as hell. She also cut her like teeth in like the club scene. She got a phone call from the brand begging to see if she was free, if she could come, and they'd pay her double if she could help. And she said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm booked up." And that was the choice that you made, because apparently this influencer was just swimming in like 300 people and could only push out like 2 drinks in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We just have to know, who do you hire? When do you hire? There is wonderfully a place for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for that these days. I'm so happy. You don't have to be like us.
Yeah.
But when you and I go to Tales with Cocktail, I can be on your booth, and you know that everyone's going to get a drink really fast. So there's time and place.
Yeah. So at my wedding, realizing that, I put all the cocktails on draft, which retrospectively might have been a horrible idea, because there was no waiting time for you getting as many margaritas as you want.
Yeah.
I thought my wife died.
No, she's alive to tell the tale.
She didn't move until 4 p.m. the next day.
Making drinks for weddings is like a whole other podcast. I will say that. I have not only tons of experience with it, I've been to over 100 weddings. So like I can tell you the do's and don'ts of how to set up your bar for efficiency. And I've also made the bars at so many places. But
Draft cocktails?
Draft cocktails
Yeah.
are the best.
Yeah.
Punches, draft cocktails. My favorite is a highball bar, like where people actually can make their own. Go wild. Make your own highball. Like that. You just have 2 things to put in. No one messes it up.
Yeah, I wish I could have done that, but there's so many people that would have just asked me to make it for them. And it's like, I'm not worried about that tonight. Here, it's on draft. Mac will get it for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's okay. Even with draft cocktails, the speed bartender will never be replaced.
Yeah. I think interestingly now, going back to your earlier point, we used to be able to classify bars pretty easily. Like there's a pub, there's a sports pub, very similar, but with more sports on. Mm-hmm. There's a club, and then there's a restaurant of the family restaurant, white tablecloth, and, we're good. Now you can't, nothing really fits into those nice, some things still fit into those boxes, but there's so much gray area in between that you almost have to speak a new language to figure out what a bar is.
I make this joke to everybody because everyone's like, so are we going to have another golden age of cocktails? And I said, no. Congratulations. We set out and accomplished what we were trying to do 10 to 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Everyone makes cocktails. Your small little diner at the corner makes spritzes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Your dive bar now they can make espresso martinis. Like we did it. I don't care if a new place opens, it's only 4 original cocktails on the menu. They make drinks. What's interesting and happening now, and I always tell people, come to New York and see, because I think some people have scoffed at New York, saying like we're not a hub of cocktail culture as opposed to globally what's happening. And I said, but we are the hub of what's happening in nightlife. And we always set the nightlife trends here in London, Berlin, I'd say, is another big one. We are now in the resurgence of the Studio 54 life. And it's very exciting and it's very sexy. Nightlife is back really big, but now what people want is disco dancing with your high-end cocktails. And we have really fabulous places like Discolo, Chow Chow, Jolene's just opened. We have Joy Face and High Lot, Cafe Balearica. This is the new norm.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. It's like we want a room with disco lights and cocktails and dancing. And I know this is going to start happening worldwide. So our industry better not say wake up, but we're now at the fusion point, and I'm stoked.
Yeah, it's more difficult to do that than it is. We got to a point, I feel, where clubs got lazy because all it was, it started with this mindset of, oh, wow, we can make more money if we do bottle service. And I worked in clubs when bottle service started.
I drank bottle service.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, but yeah, I see your Instagram. But we got to this point where some club owner went, that area over there doesn't have a bar. So either I put a bar there or I try to sell space that isn't by the bar. Mm-hmm. Genius. And then somewhere along the line, bottles used to cost less than the equivalent amount of drinks at the bar. Mm-hmm. Then they switched to more because, hey, I gave you that table.
Rental space.
No one else has a table. You have a table.
I call it the rental agreement.
And now we're at a place, though, where people are rebelling against that, going, listen, I don't want to get hammered. I want to have a few good drinks. And the perceived value of me making my own drinks when Pam is behind the bar doesn't seem like a good deal anymore.
Right.
Like, I want a good drink because I'm only going to have a couple.
And that's when we see, like, Leo Robichek started leading the way with this at the Nomad back in the day with the cocktail explosion, right? Him and Pietro came up with this amazing idea. And we've been seeing that a lot of places, like with big, huge, super batch cocktails. And that was a really big movement as well. We are kind of going back to the bottle service. I will say with, like, unfortunately here, the death of Bagatelle, it doesn't exist in New York anymore, but the Bagatelle mentality still exists of popping bottles of bubbles. Is still a big thing.
And spraying them on tables beside you?
Yeah. Yeah, it still exists.
Yeah.
People are just drinking different now in general. And that's the biggest thing. And it's something we can't ignore with the rise of psilocybin and cannabis and even ketamine treatments in therapy. There is a displacement of alcohol, especially in Gen Z and the way that they want to be imbibing. There was this comical meme on Instagram yesterday. My friend posted, she goes, these college kids now are walking around drinking green smoothies, having full retinol treatments, like going into therapy sessions. And I don't know, there was some other part. She goes, I didn't even know what water was when I was in college. But people are taking better care of themselves now than ever before because, there's a path for longevity.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, only history will tell us who's right. But it's, I feel like I worry more about things now than ever. And it's just like, what water am I drinking and where? And,
what are you worrying about?
So Toronto tap water is really good. And I still got a filter because that's better for my dog. So I drink better water. The wife drinks better water because now we got a filter for the dog's water.
Yeah, because the dog's a diva.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He better live forever.
Yeah, my dog drinks whatever I give him. My dog, it rains outside and he's like, oh, water on the ground. I'm like, no, Rick, not for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell him, like, buddy, that's not filtered. Let's get out of there.
Let's get out of there. Yeah. Yeah. I love watching cycles of of shifts in this industry. And I can definitely talk about different dates and different times when shifts were happening. And so we're at that shift. We're at that shift of the sober curious, mindful consumer. Because a lot of the work that I do now is direct to consumer. That's where I've pushed to. And I love it because I love connecting with them. I love connecting brands with people directly. And I love seeing and understanding trends of how people are consuming. And it's changing. But with that change comes a really unique opportunity for brands because if you're producing something or work with something that is a beautiful, high quality, high caliber product, there's a tale to tell in there. And when you let people know about that, they're going to want to enjoy it, but they're going to enjoy it without abusing it. And that's the difference these days, I find. I think long gone are those days of just shooting down anything that you had got in front of you. Now people want to know what's being poured in their glass. Big opportunity grab for products that are made really well.
So talk to me about that shift to the consumer side. Where did you make that decision? Was that a conscious decision? Did it just kind of pop up? How did you get there in kind of your career trajectory now?
I always love the consumer because I have a lot of beautiful, wonderful friends in the industry, but I have a huge network of friends outside the industry. And my thought was always this: how are my friends going to understand how to drink if I'm not giving them that information? And how do I dissect it to the level that they understand? Because they don't understand the lingo that we say. And I want to go sit at a bar with my friend who's not in the industry to make sure we're all getting that same kind of service. And there's not that special treatment or things that are over the top. And so my mind has always heavily been on, can my friends understand what I do? I think when I started doing a lot more media work and then working with brands directly, especially doing events where I'd make cocktails for the consumers at events. I just loved seeing people's eyes light up and being excited about things that they're tasting. And that's just kind of always where my heart's been, because I just love meeting new people. I love it. And don't get me wrong, I love our industry. I love the trade. I love investing in it. I love the people who work with me, for me. I have people I worked for. But there's something about that person that walks off the street and you're the person who gets to make sure that they taste something new. That's so special.
Yeah.
That's really special. So I think especially when I had a cocktail bar called Seamstress that was open from 2015 to 2018. When that closed, I really shifted my focus onto the home consumer. And then especially in the pandemic, when we were all locked in away, all I thought was, how can I teach people how to make drinks at home that's fun, entertaining, but not scary? Because I found that a lot of these instructional videos you couldn't really attach yourself to. But if you could do it in a way that a consumer can consume, I have to say, the information you're giving them in a friendly way that's approachable, they're on board.
So here's a question that you may be able to answer then. When I see, I'm always asked to make cocktails for the consumer in mind, whether it's for a website or something like that. And the brief is always, but it's got to be simple.
Yeah.
Because that's what they think consumers want. But is that what they want? Like, will a consumer, like, if you're out looking for a food recipe, are you turned off that it has 12 ingredients? Are you like, nope, I'm going to max out. This pasta's got to max out at 6 ingredients. And does that same thing apply? Because my theory would be, are we really thinking that, shaking that cocktail is the barrier to trial? Or, how many ingredients is too many? How many steps is too many? Is making their own syrup too far?
The idea with the home consumer is this. Can I buy the ingredient in a grocery store, and can I somehow get it into a glass? That's the barrier to entry. It breaks my heart every time I open up on my friends' refrigerators and I see a bottle of simple syrup that they purchased at the store. But I have to remember, not everybody knows that you just take a mason jar, fill it half with sugar, half with water, you shake it, and it's done at room temperature. I give them a pass. The idea with the home consumer cocktails is that a consumer is willing to shake. A consumer doesn't always know how to stir, but they'll be willing to try it. Making a syrup can be a bit intimidating, and that could be a barrier. But if you can buy all those ingredients, even a tea that you put in something to infuse, as long as you can buy the ingredients in a grocery store and have it at home, they'll make it.
So is a dry shake too far?
As long as you understand, as long as you explain what a dry shake is. So think of it like
this. So a dry shake would be shaking without ice with egg white or some egg white substitute to create foam.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even coffee drinks, I like to do a dry shake. So you need to just look at the person in front of you like they're a box with nothing in it, and they don't know anything that comes with nothing, and you have to fill it with all the instructions step by step. It's like IKEA furniture. Right? And as long as you are able to give that to them in a way that does not seem overly difficult or, something that's going to take too much time, they'll do it. And they're really excited to do it. I remember one year I went over to my friend's apartment and my two friends were like, Pam, we're so excited. There was this cocktail in a magazine and this syrup had 15 ingredients, but we still made it. And I was like, you made it syrup with 15 ingredients? They're like, yeah. Because we just bought everything at the store. So we knew what to throw in there. And I thought that was always a very interesting part of it, because they didn't have to really cook anything. It just, they had to put it in, let it simmer, and then it'll be done. But yeah, that's it. If you want to make a drink for the home consumer, the biggest thing to think about is, can I just pick up everything at a store? And then can I put it in the glass? Because there are great ingredients that are at grocery stores that in the industry, we might scoff at it. You might think oh, a lemonade. Ugh. And I look at lemonade as fabulous. I got water, sugar, and citrus all in there. And if I need to do an extra squeeze of it, a little bit more lemon, I'll tell them to do that. But that lemonade is a fabulous base to start making a drink.
European lemonade or American though?
Ooh,
Because I've had to translate recipes that come from overseas and go, guys, that's not what they're talking about here. There's something different.
I'm definitely talking about American lemonade because I know what you're talking about in the UK and overseas.
There's a bitter lemon soda.
Yeah. It's different. So you'd have to know your audience and who you're making the drink for.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could just drinks for home consumers is the best.
So my favorite was maybe it was last year or the year before. I was asked to make a French 75, but simpler. And I went, what do you mean? It's 4 ingredients. And they went, yeah, but simpler. I was like, so no shaking? It's like, yeah.
So they wanted you to use lemonade?
No,
cognac?
they wanted me to simplify a French 75, and the shake was the hard thing. So I had to remake a French 75 without shaking it.
Right, but
Yeah.
But literally, you just take a flute, you put in 1.5 ounces of lemonade, chilled. You have to say it has to become chilled from the fridge. Ounce of lemonade chilled, 1 ounce or 1.5 ounces of cognac, and then chilled sparkling wine on top.
So that might have worked with American lemonade, yeah.
Yeah.
But
it totally would work.
yeah, but I did my solution then was I took 1.5 ounces of sparkling water to the regular recipe. So I still had bubbles, but I created the dilution that way. And yes, everything had to be chilled was the barrier there as well, or serve it on ice, which I don't mind. Actually, a French 75 in a really hot environment.
Ooh, it's the best.
On ice, yeah.
A la piscine, they say in France.
Yeah.
When you put it on ice.
But I did, I had to do it with every single version of champagne that Moet had. So
that sounds like a terrible task. I would have definitely helped you.
Yeah. It was every single one. I just had them on my counter. I was like, what life have I ended up in?
Yeah.
How did I get here?
Yeah.
But beautiful. Because some of the nectar ones, the sweeter dosage, you don't even need the simple syrup. So it's much easier.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, it's way easier to use that. So yeah. And so for me, I find it is easy to make the most beautiful, high quality drinks with rotovapes and milk punches and this and that. Making drinks for the home consumer has become my love because there's so many people doing that, and I'm going to let them do it, and they do it the best. But I do this the best.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing better than when people tag me in a recipe and they're like, got this from Pam Wiz. And that makes my heart sing.
Yeah. Well, some of the simplest cocktails are really easy to put together.
Yeah.
You think of all the classics.
Yeah.
None of them involve a rotoviper that I'm aware of.
No rotovapes there. I love, and during the pandemic, I taught somewhere between 400 to 500 cocktail classes online. Yeah. Again, the home consumer. Loved it. But I love teaching people about the sours daisy category and just how everything comes from the exact same structure. And once I taught them that, it was like bing, bing. It was like a light bulb goes off in people's heads. I'm like, this is where you get to have some fun. But it's so phenomenal to then see how people are going to experiment with it at home. I always tell people, I go in your cabinet, see what sweetening things you have, see what sour things you have with spirits, what teas for infusions, like other things for infusions, and things for muddling, and get going. Sky's the limit once you understand the formula and the foundation of it all.
So every time I do a cocktail class, I make it entertaining, but everybody's like, why are you doing the same 2 drinks? I was like, because these 2 drinks, a sour and an old fashioned.
That's it. That's what I teach.
Once you understand why each ingredient is there, you can modify forever. I tell people in the sour recipe, it's like here, you do 2 parts your base spirit, 1 part sour, 1 part sweet. Why would you use lime? Why would you use lemon? Great. Then we're going to add a 1/2 ounce of whatever juice or puree you want. And now you have a blueberry sour. Now you have a blackberry sour. Now you have a pineapple sour. Doesn't matter. You just made it, and you can modify it any way you want. You want a longer drink? Add sparkling water.
Yeah. My favorite is always teaching. I call the evolution the mojito, and I love teaching this to people because, as you know, it's easy for you, but it starts out with a daiquiri, and daiquiri is the perfect sour, right? And it's just rum, simple syrup or sugar syrup of some sort, and lime juice. And then I would tell people, I said, all right, let's take it to the next step. Let's add in some mint. And what do we get? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I go, that's called a smash. So smash is when we take berries or herbs and we like smash it into the drink. And they're like, oh. And I said, so you can take any sour and instantly turn into a smash. And they're like, oh. And I said, now I'm going to top it with a little bit of soda water. What do I have? And like, obviously they don't know. And I go, a mojito. When their eyes light up, just knowing that that's the step to get a mojito, it's not what you think it is. It just like changes their whole perception of like how easy it is to make something at home. Mm-hmm. It's just the fact that I think a lot of times when they watch these brilliant, beautiful bartenders making drinks, it is intimidating. They think they can't do it. So we have to show them how you can do it with the tools that you already have at home, with just your mason jar, with a back of a knife to muddle something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You can make it at home.
A protein shaker for a shaker.
The best.
Yeah.
Protein shakers are the best.
But in reverse, I shake my protein shakes I take the spring off the Hawthorne strainer, throw it in a shaker, and use that. It mixes way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty fabulous doing it that way.
But I think one of the barriers I've found, and that I've tried to explain to young bartenders as well, it's like, you may know all of this because you have an interest in it. And when you look at your back bar, when you read a menu and you see Averna in a drink, you have an idea of what that tastes like with the other ingredients. You read Chambord, you have an idea. You read, a particular overproof rye, you're like, I know what that's bringing to the table, et cetera, et cetera. The average consumer can't read a cocktail menu that way. They don't have those flavors in the back of their head the same way they might reading a food menu, where they're like, oh, basil, oh, cream sauce, oh, like they can figure out what that chicken dish tastes like.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
But we can do that with drinks. And that's where we need to get to a point of either descriptions or helping guide people through it or anything like that, because they don't have that flavor memory.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's a learning ability. But I also think it's how we list things on a menu. So right now there's a bar that I work at called The Lookup. And if you get that menu, first off, there are no names for cocktails. The cocktails are numbers 1 through 11, which is so fabulous because it uncomplicates everything, and you don't have to worry about issues of naming things inappropriately or people feeling weird about it. But the second thing is that when I put descriptions down, I take it down to the bare bones minimal. Instead of saying saline solution, I would say salt. Instead of saying orgeat, I would say almond. Instead of saying we use blue spirulina in a drink, and I just write blue. But it's enough I just want the description short and to the point. Like, we've got to drink the number 3 that is rye, Pimm's, cherry, lemon, bubbles. And that's what it says. Boom. Easy. And for me, I think about anybody coming upstairs, I want them to feel that this is not like unintimidating for them in the process. And even with our wines are listed in the same way. It's listed first by varietal. So it said like white bubbles instead of Prosecco or instead of Cava. And then we have all the information afterwards. But it's like white bubbles, red bubbles, pink bubbles, like crisp white, and we just go that way. I want everyone to feel comfortable. And for me, that's the most important part if you're going to drink with me or at a place that I work.
Well, they say the biggest evolution to happen to wine in the last kind of 50 years is the progressive wine list, where a somm, I believe he was in California, started listing wines from light to heavy. And so you didn't need to understand anything about the wine at all. You just needed to understand, like, what am I in the mood for? Am I in the mood for something light or heavy?
Right.
Or somewhere in the middle? And you could just go down the list that way. And it also helped the staff, because all the staff needed to know was, instead of knowing the 100 wine list, they needed to know 5, like one at each sort of level of heaviness or lightness. And then you could really help guide a consumer through price point or what they wanted.
Right.
Whereas wine lists used to be, oh, here's our Burgundy section. What does that mean? I don't know. Most people don't even know that's Pinot Noir if it's red.
I was going to say the Pinot Noir section.
Yeah. But that's amazing. And a couple of years ago, this genius guy, shout out Joe Nemchek, at MH, he thought, why don't we do that for spirits? And so him and I spent the better part of a year tasting incredible stuff. We only did it for brown spirits, but breaking it down to the point of like, you don't need to understand what rum is.
I remember this.
You don't need to understand what like Isla whiskey is. Here's what you need to understand. This tastes very similar to that. Do you like that or do you like this? Perfect. Then you're going to like this likely. Mm-hmm. Or maybe that's too sweet for you. So go down lower, get something else. Go left, get drier. If somebody uncracks that, it's going to be amazing because you can help people understand, because all it was you don't need to know any of this. You just need to know yourself. And you know yourself better than anybody else, or at least you better.
My favorite is when someone comes up to the bar with like a friend or a spouse and you're like, oh, would you like to drink? And then the person in front of you goes, oh, like what should I drink? And they don't look at you. They're looking at their friend they came with. Like they should dictate what the person should get. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm asking you and your palate and what you want. Don't ask them. I would always make fun. I'd be like, don't ask them. Like, talk to me. It's interesting because this goes back to what you were saying before about descriptions. We kind of forget that not everybody drinks. And when we say not everybody drinks, everyone drinks at different levels within that small subset of people who do drink. And so the knowledge and understanding how things taste vary, right? Everybody eats. So when you say basil, most people in this world have had basil. You say cheese, we know what cheese tastes like. And this is why food programming forever and ever and ever will always be better than beverage programming. And it just will have a shelf life when beverage programming won't, because everybody eats. Mm-hmm. But not everybody drinks in this capacity. We drink water because we have to survive. And drinking is an elective activity. You don't have to drink, right? And so it has a smaller subset of people who are interested in it, and therefore the terms and understanding of how flavors and things go together sometimes can be puzzling, or people don't understand because we're experimenting with new flavors constantly. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, like not everyone drinks. Oh no, our industry, but it's just always something to remind people about why we need to approach it with a mindset of being kind, not being snobby, not putting ingredients that people don't understand. Like, look, I love sea buckthorn in a drink. I'm sure you like it too. It's like really, for those who don't know, sea buckthorn is like a lot of Scandinavian countries use it. And it's very tart. It's real tart. Mm-hmm. But if you put that on an average menu, even in New York City or in Oklahoma, people are going to know what that is.
Sorry, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Sorry, Oklahoma. So I think that's just really important to remember your audience. Just remember the target audience and like what you're trying to create for them in the spaces that you're opening. Yeah.
My interest now is, what excites me in cocktails is when people are creating things with every ingredient in mind. Like if we want to go to the opposite side and get like really nerdy, where you're creating a drink that you can't just sub out the base spirit for another base spirit in that same category. No, it was designed for this cognac or this rum. Mm-hmm. And that has a different flavor profile than that rum or that cognac. So it's when you really have thought about all sides of it, and it's a great drink that way. If you sub out for another of the same category of base spirit, it's good, but it's not great anymore. Yeah. And I really like that conscious thought of it works for this, not because, there's so many bars that we know that have just taken sponsorship and just taken that one drink on their menu and just kept subbing the base. And it's like, it's good. Is it great though that way?
Yeah.
And if it is, then why do you have the base spirit at all?
Yeah. And this is the reason why I still really like cocktail competitions, because a cocktail competition means that the drink, most of the time, I'm going to preface this for most of the time, the drink is made specifically for the product that they're working with. And you get to taste some extraordinary things that were crafted specifically for that product. And I think that's really exciting. I will remember back in the day when I was heavily competing, this one person, I'm still pretty bitter about it, but won in a competition with a drink that I knew that was on his menu at a place that he just subbed out and switched. And he used this like 12 times in different competitions, just kept subbing it out. And I was like, that stinks on so many levels. But that's what he wanted to do. But I do think that cocktail competitions are an exciting place to taste, sample, and see drinks that are crafted specifically for specific spirits, because we don't know at bars if that's going to be the case, because there is that substitution method that happens quite often.
I had somebody enter a cocktail competition that I was judging with one of my drinks.
Scandal.
I read it and I was just
Scandal.
like, you didn't even change the name. Like, you kept the name and the entire recipe. That's mine.
Wow. Was it good? Did they make it well?
Oh, it's a fabulous drink. But
what's in it?
It's Hennessy, ounce and a half Hennessy.
Which Hennessy?
VS.
Okay.
For the spicy and bright.
They're different.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam.
I'm a VSOP girl. You know that.
VSOP is my. If I were ever given a choice, I don't know why everyone has this like. That would be what I had on a deserted island. I was like, you don't get a choice to be on a deserted island. What do you think you're going to have with you? But mine would be VSOP. It fits so many moments. But VS in this drink for the brightness and the new oak, because I designed it after a grilled pineapple dessert I had in Cuba, because I'm Canadian and I can go there.
Yeah, that's nice.
But
they're
was
just spying on us via China these days. I found out yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I hope they're not tapping this.
Why does China need Cuba for that? That's what TikTok's for.
Yeah, I know precisely.
Yeah.
That's why I don't TikTok.
Yeah. So it was grilled pineapple, chopped up and flambéed in a rum, and the dash was cinnamon. And I went, okay, I can make that in a drink. So Hennessy VS, instead of that rum, pineapple juice or muddled pineapple if you want. I like the kind of the pulpiness of having that in the bottom. But about 3/4 of an ounce of pineapple juice, half ounce of lime, 1/3 of an ounce of agave, 4 dashes Angostura bitters to be the cinnamon on top of those pineapples, and 1/5 of an ounce of Ardbeg.
Oh, yay.
And so Ardbeg is the smoke from the grill, and it works out so well. And it was one of those drinks that it's the only time it's ever happened in my life where you conceptualize a drink in your head and then make it, and it was perfect the first time.
I won a competition once that way. I submitted a recipe without ever making it, and that recipe got in, and I won the competition.
Brilliant.
Yeah. That's like, you get to a point in the industry, not in the industry. Sometimes if you're really good at what you're doing, you get to you get to a point where you can start conceptualizing things, and tasting them is something you do later on because you just know it's going to work. Mm-hmm. It's very fun.
Yeah.
To get to that point. And that's actually, I will actually say this. When I make a menu, I sit down on a spreadsheet and I start conceptualizing everything. I dream up like every drink that I want to do, and I will then go in and make it, and just basically, like, I hate saying this is not a cocky thing, but like I'm just double checking to make sure it works, and I'll adjust little things, and it's just so fun.
But that's trial and error. It's like to get there, you had to make a lot of bad drinks.
Yeah, I made a lot of bad drinks back in the day.
Yeah, I think about how much alcohol I've poured down the drains over the years. It's a unfathomable amount.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, nope, that didn't work. Nope, still not working. Nope, yeah. And then you finally get there. That drink was so good, I just kept drinking it all night and forgot to name it. And then I was at a bar, and a woman walked up and said, I don't like cognac, and I don't like scotch. And I went, well, I work
That's
for
a sad life.
I work for cognac, so this is going to be a weird interaction we're about to have. And I started making her that drink, and she tried it and loved it and went, what's in this? And I went, cognac and scotch. And I was able to do that because I was buying all the drinks that night, so it was fine. But after that moment, I called that drink the game changer because it just changed her life.
Yeah, it definitely changed her life. That's a drink that I would order on a menu. But I'm extremely partial to cognac. It's my favorite thing to drink, and I will always stand by that. If you're not making your Vieux Carrés with a split base of rye and cognac, you're doing it wrong.
I think if more people could pronounce the Vieux Carré, it would be it would be one of the most popular drinks out there.
Yeah.
But it's intimidating to people that that word VIOUX, they're like, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I think there's an interesting place for all of those. What I do think about cognac is that I've spent the last 13 years trying to educate people on it, because it's people don't know it. So they're scared of it. They don't want to spend their hard-earned money on something that they're unsure about, let alone letting somebody that they don't yet have a trust level with make something with it. Mm-hmm. So they've stayed away from it. And yet I think there's a lot of spirits that fit into that realm where, why are some of the most popular scotches the most popular scotches? Well, they're easier to pronounce than others. They're also good. So there was no reason for anyone to jump to something that they couldn't pronounce.
Yeah, I think it's a big reason why you see brands like Macallan,
Yeah.
everybody jumps to.
Easy to pronounce.
Super easy to pronounce. And you'll see like Bruichladdich, for example, like most people shy away from.
Bunnahabhain? Nobody wants to try to pronounce that.
Yeah, and it's fabulous
Yeah.
juice. And I think in general, I think it also depends upon the communities and spaces that you're also brought up in, because certain spaces, certain communities have spirits that are attached to them. Historically speaking, I can say, like, as someone who's Jewish, like cognac is not something that's highly consumed within the Jewish community, because there's a lot of issues with grapes and observance of kashrut or keeping kosher. There's, that's a whole thing. So they shy away from anything grape based in general. So you don't see Jews drinking it. So I never grew up in spaces where grape brandies were around. But in other communities, you do see it in such a prominent and prevalent way, and it's widely consumed. It's beautifully enjoyed, and I love seeing how and why people know about it. And I gotta give always hats off to the hip hop industry for really bringing cognac to the forefront in American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was not for them and not these influential musicians drinking it and talking about it, who knows if it would have had the same type of pop off as we had sort of in
Totally.
the 80s and 90s. And I love it. And that is 100% an association that we must give credit to them, to the musicians, and that movement for that reason.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because there's a documentary a couple years ago, came out I think 2015, but this person asked the question, like, why cognac and hip hop, and they went back and they go back to 1896, third generation Hennessy, Maurice Hennessy, is in New York meeting with William J. Shefflin of Shefflin and Sons Importers. They're Hennessy's importers since 1794. So they were Hennessy in the U.S. These men both believed all men are created equal. Real easy thing to say for two really rich white men in the time.
Oh, that's nice. Yes, absolutely.
But they put their money where their mouth was. They built a nonprofit to fight for specifically black working rights in New York, where they saw these deplorable conditions. That later merged with a few others, nonprofits and other charities. And we know that merger today is the Urban League.
Wow.
Hennessy and William J. Shefflin also, William J. Shefflin was close personal friends to Booker T. Washington, so brought people down on his train to Tuskegee Institute, the train of the 1800s being the private jet of today, people to help with their academic prowess, their money, their political, strength. And then it's 1906, 1907. Hennessy is the first corporate sponsor of the NAACP, and then it just goes on and on and on and on from there. So it became this kind of love between Hennessy and the black community. And so what do you sing about when you open your first album? No matter what genre of music, you sing about how you grew up, your situation, anything like that. Well, you grew up and Hennessy was at the table because Hennessy was at the table fighting for black rights at the beginning. Yeah. You could read articles in Jet and Ebony about this. And
that's amazing. And I talk so strongly about when people say, how and why do people drink? Is it fads? Can we do things? I said, a lot of it is sometimes what you were surrounded by, what was in your house.
Yeah.
One of the first things I ever had was a plum wine at my Shabbat table. And I always want to have umeshu, which is a plum wine. It's that like Madeleine Proustian Madeleine moment, right? It takes me back to when I was younger. Another, for me, Moscato was another big thing. So I love Moscato, I love it. And these are just things that were in my household. So I can imagine when you grow up and that is a bottle that's there It's not just nostalgic. It's not just your heritage and your history, but it's your drinking preference. Your palate is used to it as well. So that is fascinating. We should dive into more history later.
My dad, lucky for me, he was of the generation that Playboy wasn't like just like a nudie mag. It was a lifestyle of like, you want, a velvet jacket, a velvet smoking jacket, and you want to create cocktails and you want all of this. And it was like, so he had an incredible bar setup, and then he had kids and didn't need any of that, like custom made suits, incredible bar setup, all of that. And now it took a while until we got to an age where we weren't bothering them all the time. And so they could start having friends over again. But I started bartending for my parents at about like 12. He was like, here's 5 recipes. First cocktail I ever made, fuzzy navel.
Nice. Wow, a lot of people don't know what a fuzzy navel is.
So it was
peach schnapps and orange juice.
Yeah, the simplest thing in the world, but it worked out really well.
You know how to remember a Sex on the Beach recipe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But tell them.
They always say a fuzzy navel and a Cape Codder get it on together on the beach.
Oh, that's not how I remember it.
Oh, really?
Mine is if you are having sex on the beach, you're going to get caught by the cops. COP, cranberry, orange, peach schnapps.
Oh my gosh. And vodka. A little bit of vodka. Sex on the beach. Yeah, but that's what we were just always told, that the Cape Codder and a fuzzy navel got it on the beach. So
Amazing.
It's just a hybrid of the two drinks. Yeah.
Yeah, when drinks had names that people could remember because they had, or they made up stories for them. It's like, I remember going to a bartending school and they were just like, what's in a chocolate monkey? It was like
Baileys.
Chocolate and bananas. Yeah, they're like, yes, those are the key ingredients. Like, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nowadays you can't get that. Somebody's going to rename a drink and they're just going to name it for something cool they heard or a funny story to them.
And there's certain names that like I'm glad they've gone by the wayside. Like let's just get real. Like redheaded slut is not appropriate and we shouldn't be saying it. And it's actually not a bad drink, but and actually, you know what? Surfer on acid's still fine. There's certain ones, that we can use, but we should rename something.
But those are all drinks that, working in clubs, I had to make a ton of those. But what I found was when you travel, there's sometimes a completely different drink. Same name, completely different drink.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's somebody forgot the recipe and just decided, I'll just put this in it.
I'm going to make it this way.
Yeah. But for some reason, they all became something different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember some of the names. I had a bar in Toronto and I was traveling for Hennessy and they had a drink called Sorry He's Not Here.
That's funny. What was in it? Just
I don't know.
A shot of Hennessy and some tears?
Yes. Hennessy and salt. Yeah. It had Hennessy in it. I don't remember what else because, again, I wasn't there to find it.
There was a famous drink when Mission Chinese was open in New York and it was in the Lower East Side. There was always like a 2 to 3 hour wait. There was a bar next door, Amity Hill, I think it was called, and Amity Hill, one of those two. And you would go inside because a lot of times, when you're waiting for a place, you go get a drink somewhere else. And there was a drink on the menu called the 2 hour wait because they got so much business from people waiting to get into that bar. I always thought it'd be a brilliant article for someone to write about the bar you wait in to get into the really awesome bar you wait in to get into the bar you're trying to get into, and do like a whole expose on places like Cherry Tavern, which is next to Death & Co., Francis Tavern, which is next to the Dead Rabbit, like all these places that get spillover traffic, but are also fabulous places themselves.
Yeah. So Fleischmann's beside Dead Rabbit, we were talking about this with somebody the other day. Everybody might go there to just get a drink, but I purposely went there because they carry Porterhouse Oyster Stout, and that's what I drank when I lived in Ireland. And they're the American distributor for Porterhouse Oyster Stout. So it's the only place outside of England and Ireland that I found it. So I would go get a drink from you sometimes at Dead Rabbit and then just leave everybody else at Dead Rabbit and go be drinking stout at the bar next door.
That is so funny. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I love the amazing bars that are all around the country, but we just forget that sometimes steps away are also other fabulous places. And it's nice to go back to places you love, but like maybe take a second and pop into another spot. You may be very happily surprised.
So I have this belief that there are bars or restaurants in Montreal that are in between two other great restaurants and bars, not on the same street, but like walking distance. Because in January, February, and March, the meaning of the word frigid is realized in Montreal. And so you walk, and these bars have baseboard heaters around the bar. So you come in and just warm your feet up, have a drink, like a mulled wine or something. And then when you're warm, keep walking to your next bar.
And then you book it to the next spot.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. You want to be being the in-between bar.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous place to be because you'll always stay in business.
Yeah.
You'll always stay in business. So
Yeah.
you can bet between the two. Also, Montreal strip clubs that work that way as well.
Yeah. Okay. We're going there. All right.
But it's, if you're going to talk about it, it's always like funny because it's like a city block in Montreal is like fabulous restaurant, shoe repair person, strip club, another really great bar, restaurant, like one shop, strip club.
Yeah.
It's
They're known for their strip clubs.
I know. It just really, it makes me smile. I love that it's just like a hybrid all on one street together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We're not shy.
No.
We're nice people in Canada, not shy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've always just wondered like where you place the loonies and toonies.
Yeah, that becomes so. You start with 5s or you get 20s, and you just treat it differently. There's no making it rain.
Yeah.
At Toronto strip clubs, allegedly.
I feel like if I were a performer, I'd have like something on my wrist, like a sweatband, a sports band that would have like a little like change purse thing that, you know, like a piggy bank of some sort that you could just like put your arm down and they could slide the loony and toonie in there. Maybe I should make that and distribute them in Montreal.
You're onto something.
Or around your waist, like a belt, like or garter belt that had it. I just feel like there's ways too.
Yeah. So to the other side of the service industry at the bars, coins in Canada were brilliant, especially working at some of the bars I did where we attracted a lot of Americans because you taught as a nation, every American believes change is worthless. Because you have a $1 coin in America, but you never use it.
You don't use it.
So it's 25 cents is the highest you go, and so it's useless. So
we have
when
we
I
have
had
a 50 center, but we don't
you,
use
again,
it.
you don't use it.
Yeah.
We have a 50 cent that we don't use. So we have 25. Then you get to a loonie, $1, $2 toonie. To an American, the ones that were also not nice customers, they ordered an $11 drink. They gave you a 20. You're like, here you go. $9 in change. And they go, oh, change is worthless. Keep it. I'm like, no problem, sir.
So smart.
Yeah.
I went to camp in Canada, so I learned the value of a loonie and toonie very fast. I also learned that I could drink on my days off when I was 19 legally. So that was also
It's
fun.
a wonderful moment, isn't it?
It's so great. And I also learned what the LCBO was.
Yeah.
And how it controls everything.
The devil.
I know.
Yeah.
But
But
the beer store was real cool.
yeah. Education. When I educate anyone in a northern state near the border, they're always like, oh, I love Canada. I'm like, let me guess. Between the ages of 19 and 21, you were a huge fan of Canada and visited frequently. Yeah. Have you been back? No.
I still love Canada.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I was just at Epcot over the weekend, and I love that like Canada is like the first place that you go to and you drink around the world. And there's all these rides and everything all over Epcot. And in Canada, they're like, come and watch Canada, the far and wide. And it's just this 360 movie. Eugene Levy is one of the narrators.
Of course he is.
And I'm just standing there after a bunch of drinks, like really staring at everything. And I'm like crying. I'm like, Canada is beautiful. And it is this great. And it's a hub of art and culture. My friend's like, are you okay?
Well, it's I've realized in all my travels, like there's some beautiful buildings out there in the world, but there is not a building more beautiful than the forest it replaced. And so Canada's beautiful because we don't have many people and we have lots of land. So a lot of it's just untouched wilderness, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, a lot of wilderness.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love it.
So if you had one weekend in New York as a person that had never been to New York, where are you going? What are you eating? What are you drinking?
Like, are we starting Friday night through
Yes.
Sunday? I'm just going to give you a rundown of things. So when people come to New York, I'll say especially service industry people, they always come with this huge list of like bars, restaurants. And I go, hold on. You are in the best city in the world. you better be doing a lot of other things. So if you've never been to New York City and you want to see a view, and it's great you could go to like the Summit, you can go the Edge, the Empire State Building. I always say combine the two things together. So I do truly love Manhattan. I think it's such a fabulous place, and it's great because you can see a beautiful view of New York City, that and Overstory. So I would say get a drink at some place like that. I would say first off, book a Broadway show of some sort. Broadway, off Broadway, a theater in New York is absolutely amazing. If you don't go see it, you're really missing out. Like, this is the heartbeat of the city. Do that. Eat at a diner. Diners. It's the best food in the city. And if you want a good one, you ask a local where like their favorite diner is. When you're drinking coffee, like forgo Starbucks, do a local coffee shop. There's such good, beautiful local coffee. Like, go find one in the neighborhoods you're going to be in.
Sorry, Starbucks.
No, listen, Starbucks does its thing, but like, you were in New York where like, you know, people have built their empires, their coffee empire. Like, my friend who owns Joe Coffee was my old camp director. But he did that. I would do that. Go to a museum. I'm a member of the Met. I have been a member of the Met for the past 10 years. It's my favorite membership I have. I think this place is absolutely stunning. You can get, in the summer times, a drink on the rooftop, at the rooftop like area. Spend a little time there, or like the Natural History Museum. Make sure that you're not spending all your time downtown. I always tell people, get to Harlem. There's a lot of amazing things happening uptown that people forget about. So I would say do a Central Park Day that ends you at 110th and Central Park West, and kind of go north. There's fabulous restaurants there. And then I always like to say, get a good pair of shoes and just walk the city if it's decent weather. The High Line is obviously fabulous. But if you're going to touch bars that I'd say get here, you're getting a pint at Swift. You're going to Swift. And I will stand by that. Is one of my favorite bars in all of New York City. Been around for 28 years. There's a reason it's here. Get your butts out to Brooklyn. Go to Clover Club. Forever one of my favorite cocktail bars. I'd say do yourself a service on Sunday morning and go do brunch there. If it's the fall time in the winter, go get the Port of Call. It's my favorite cocktail. And other bars that I just truly love. I love 67 Orange in Harlem. I love Katana Kitten. I love actually here in we're in Herald Square right now. I mean, come see us at the Lookup. There are a bunch of really amazing cocktail bars right around this area. It's actually see Herald Square, Times Square, and then come eat and drink and hop. And I would say this: get on that Staten Island ferry, go see the Lady Liberty holding that torch. Hop off and get a fast drink in Staten Island and come back. You don't have to stay long. Stay for an hour, but get out of Manhattan. Get out. There's a lot you can do, and the city's 24 hours. So.
And then piece of advice to a young bartender.
Piece of advice to a young bartender. Wow.
Maybe it's a piece of advice to your young self, if you could.
Yeah. Or I think to myself or to any young bartender, stay true to who you are. I think this industry tries to push us into areas and places, trying to make us do things that feel unnatural, or saying you have to do this as cutting edge or this and that. Just know what you do want to do or you don't want to do, and say when things are or not what you want to do. Because if you're not someone who wants to craft incredible drinks, but you want to provide service and speed and manage, you're going to be amazing. And you don't have to do that. If you don't want to do cocktail competitions, don't do that. If you want to work in the back of house, creating and crafting everything that happens for the front of house, do that. I think so oftentimes we get overrun and washed by these waves of seeing celebrity bartenders and people flying around for guest bartending stints and put on stages of accolades. And don't get me wrong, I'm definitely a product of that, but I think sometimes you lose yourself and the authenticity of what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
So just be really true to yourself with what you want to do. I think I'm very confident in the fact that I've really come around to that with myself in this industry. I'm doing now exactly what it is that I truly love to do and want to do. And I'm not going to get pushed into areas that don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And have fun, because at the end of the day, it's just drinks.
Yeah.
And there's nothing serious about drinks.
Yeah. It's a fun industry. People come to us to have fun.
Yeah.
Very few people go to a bar to be depressed.
Yeah.
That may happen time and again, but most people are coming for fun.
Yeah.
Celebrate the end of a night, celebrate the end of a week, celebrate something more,
Yeah.
an anniversary, a birthday, something like that. They're all coming for fun.
Yeah. So just have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank
This was a great
you.
talk.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.